Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. We just witnessed our first weekend of the World Cup. We had eight exciting games, and we learned a lot about the teams. So, first of all, I just wanted to start it off with what the first thing I noticed is just that teams, even teams in possession, even what you would consider maybe historically big teams, are struggling to break down opposition. And it's a feature that I've seen almost across all the games this weekend. Obviously, we had a few blowout results with Germany beating Curacao 7-1 and Sweden beating Tunisia 5-1. But you see games like Haiti Scotland when Haiti had the majority of the game and they struggled to break down a Scottish backline. You see the same thing with Australia versus Turkey. You see the same with Switzerland versus Qatar. So many teams having a lot of the ball. And just struggling to one create chances, and then it'll come into my second point of just like taking those chances. But the way I view football is that football is a game of opposites. They have teams which sit low, like Australia sat very low, Qatar sat very low for a bit, but just not able to draw them out. So it's about enticing a team to come out of that back line. It's about taking a team left to go right, taking a team right to go left, inside to go to the outside. And it was just a lot of moving the ball, but not with a purpose, not with an idea, not with an ability to have a bit of disguise and enticing people out of positions, committing people with a dribble. It was all very stagnant. And on the stat sheet, it would show tons of possession, but they're not really moving people. Um, and I think at this level, teams will be a lot more pragmatic. It's very rare that you'll see a game where teams go head to head. Even in the Japan Netherlands game, where it seemed maybe like teams were going head to head in the 2-2 draw, I think it was more about the Netherlands having out of the ball, Japan sitting and hoping that they can get something on the counter. They did, and they did also get something on the set piece. But it's rare that you'll see a game like, for example, the first leg of the Bayern versus PSG game where it's attack versus attack almost. So you have to be smart in how you move teams. You have to be strategic in how you do your build up, how you draw teams out, how you entice the type of players that you select that can commit a play out of his shape and then force some destruction and people moving about and just being smart with that. And I don't think we've seen enough of that in the opening weekend or the opening 4 days of the World Cup or so. The second thing I noticed that goes along with that is that um, the the quality of finishing has not been there. Usually in the World Cup, you see a breakout star who, and obviously it's a few days in, but you see a breakout star which other people haven't been talking about coming in and finishing goals. And then we see what usually happens after that is that they get a big move to one of the big clubs. And sometimes we call it the World Cup tax. We struggle to see the benefit, and it doesn't always work out. What I've noticed is just maybe a little insight into maybe the thinking of these big clubs and just say, if you can show up on this big stage and comfortably put away 5 goals in this competition, you have a little bit about you. You have the ability to deal with the pressure. You have the ability to finish under pressure. You have the ability to be consistent at a high level. This is a high level, regardless of if you're facing teams within the top 10 rankings or just top 100 rankings. Um, this is pressure. This is a high level sport. So I see it a little bit, and you see Siberia being rewarded already with a move to Bayern Munich for his finish against Brazil. And obviously that move might have been being worked on for a few weeks, if not months. But the performance might have just made the execs over at Bayern Munich just say, you know what, he could do it at the big stage, and it might not work out, but you kind of see it's so important to have people who can finish at that elite level because you really do not get many chances at the World Cup, and it's just the ability to have composure and a finish like he did, just chipping it over Allison, tells you that hey, there might be something about this player. So we haven't seen that clinical kind of striker where one chance, one goal. I was watching the Ecuador Ivory Coast game, and I know Ecuador was my dark horses. So really disappointed in the overall performance. But they had two chances which just struck the woodwork, and you just like, if they had that kind of striker who can finish, that's two. And then you're looking at a very very different outcome, and not just for him personally, but for the team. It relieves some pressure. It takes. It gives you some confidence going into the breaks. And then that kind of leads me into the third thing that I've noticed is that these water breaks, these commercial breaks, these turning football into quarters, however you want to call it, is really, really disrupting the play. You see, I remember growing up and playing football, and people would just, coaches rather, would just tell you, hey, break the game up into tens, into fives, into 15, survive this, then build here, be really strong. And then you get into a position where around that 20-25 minute mark, you change the rhythm a little. You survive. Sometimes you just getting into your second breath. You're surviving maybe the onslaught of it, and then you're coming out of your shell a little bit, big, a little more. Sorry. You see even historical games like the Germany versus Brazil game that ended 7-1 to Germany. I would say maybe like three or four of the goals were scored in that 20 to 30 mark, 30-minute mark. It's just that's when teams come out, because you always want to keep it very tight at the beginning. Then you kind of warm up a little bit, and then you kind of feel each other out, and then you can become a little more expressive during that 20-minute part. And then you want to keep it tight because you never want to concede just before halftime. So again, you play the game in stages, and I think having that water break, especially for that long, 3 minutes into it, at that 20, I think they do it at 23 or so minutes, it just really disrupts the rhythm. And what it does is that the smaller teams, especially who come in and they're just like, okay, we don't want to give anything away. We don't want to give anything away earlier. We want to make sure that we keep it tight. This and then around that 20-minute mark, they start to come out of the shell and play and start to put maybe what we call the bigger teams under pressure. Really, really it helps them, just like helps the bigger teams kind of get another tactical session in quickly with the coaches, change something up. We've seen it help. We've seen it help Brazil when they were struggling against Morocco. They kind of came back and they ended up getting a goal. We've seen it help Australia. We've seen it help a few other teams in the World Cup, just like recalibrate and talk about their strategy and go into it. And that's on the football side. Now on the fan side, it makes for terrible viewing. We're looking at the game being turned into four quarters like a basketball game. The commercials just going, we don't know what's going on in the pitch, and just breaks down the rhythm. It's very hard to get that momentum back, because even if you're starting to get into the ascendancy and you're starting to put even a bigger team under the cosh a bit, if you might say so, the break just gives them breathing room, more fluids in them. And I understand it's hot, but some of these games are played in a climate controlled dome, so very unnecessary in my opinion. And the fans are just like, you're left wanting for more. You just, now it's a time, okay, what do I do with these 3 minutes? I'm on my phone, I'm losing focus, I'm not entertained anymore. I get up and then I come back and the action's already started. And that's not something that you're used to in football. You're used to sitting down for 45 minutes plus some extra time, and then at halftime you go get a snack, you go get use the bathroom, whatever you have to do. So it's very disrupting, both I think for the players, and I've seen players like Virgil van Dijk speak out about it. And just for the fan perspective, it's not making for great viewing. But um, this is what I've noticed over the weekend. Hoping to see a little more of creativity in breaking down teams. Obviously we've seen some breakout stars already. We've seen Yan Diomande against Ecuador. I remember him struggling a little bit against France in the game, in the warm up game, but really showing out as a breakout star so far. Again, one game in, but we've seen good stuff. We've seen Ayari yesterday for Sweden, having an incredible game, two incredible goals. And there's some players coming to the fold that we're just like, where, like, it'll be interesting to see where they end up after the tournament is done. Um, but some exciting games on show today. We have Spain, Cape Verde, we have Belgium, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Uruguay, um, and then finally Iran versus New Zealand. So really excited to try to watch some of these games and see what more we start to see from both like a tactical standpoint, but also how teams adapt to the hydration break, because it is going to be at every single game. So complaining about it as a purist and a fan, sure, but I think as players it's time to adapt and see how we can make it work for our best advantage, and say, okay, maybe we want to structure our building up the game a little differently, maybe a push after it and keep it tight before it. It's keeping it tight a little longer than maybe most teams would normally do, but it is what it is. And then after the competition is done, then they can have a conversation with FIFA and Gianni Infantino to see that this never comes back into our game. But yeah, that's what I've noticed this weekend. So thank you very much, and I hope you look forward to the next episode.